All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our energy update here for energetically sensitives and empathic people. My name is Jona Bryndis, and I'm airing from Transcoats in snowy Colorado. It's minus 13 degrees Celsius outside. So I'm sitting inside here today, and I hope that you guys can all see me. All right, awesome. Okay. I can't see myself, so I'm just like basically talking into emptiness, and I can't. There's too many things that I have to look at once. So I'm just going to focus on the energy here, and I'm just going to focus on you and being present here. And this is pretty much summing up what we can do here in these times of increasing intensity. All right, so we have summer, winter solstice here in the northern hemisphere, summer solstice in the southern hemisphere, and these are times that are very important for energy workers because we can feel that at these sort of shifts that the planet goes through, that the energies of people is going through shifts as well. And so we celebrate the winter solstice here at Transcoats, I think for the last 10, 15 years. The winter solstice has actually been more of a holiday for me than anything, but mostly because this is really the beginning of these last 12 days of the year, and where I was raised in Germany, we call this Rauhnächte, and so they have a specific meaning for us energetically, besides just the fact that a lot of energy is shifting in that time. And we're going to talk about the winter solstice here today, and we're also going to talk about some of these disruptive energies that a lot of you guys are feeling. Real quick, I'm an energy healer and energy coach. I explained what an energy coach is. It's a little more than just a healer. It's explaining things and teaching people, training people how to get in touch with their own self-healing abilities, and basically how to interpret, how to translate, how to transcode their own energy system into feasible, practical, applicable ways of dealing with things on a deeper level. And deeper is kind of like the keyword here for these last 12 days, I'd say, for at least for the next week. And we have already been experiencing this in the last 2 weeks. Everything is going deeper. Everything seems to drive us more into connecting within. And this is, of course, also a part of the season. You know, it's the darkest nights here in the northern hemisphere, and so there's more time also to connect within. And if we don't want to do this, then there is a problem. If we don't want to do this, we begin to suppress things. We begin to perhaps even try to avoid things. We try to be in a certain way that is not true to who we truly are. And this is the conflict. This is the classical conflict in these times, is that there is a part in us that drives us into this deeper part. And then, of course, there's all the practical stuff. There's the holidays. There's the getting the gifts, wrapping up work, getting ready for a lot of functions, getting ready for family to come and so forth. So naturally, it's the time of a lot of inner and outer tension. And unfortunately, also the time with the highest rates of domestic violence, of lots of crime and so forth, lots of really families getting into conflict with another. And so this is is stored in our collective, and it influences us even if we personally or as individuals don't really have these issues at that moment, but we can pick up on that tension. And so this is sort of the winter solstice craziness, as we call that, because everybody can feel it. Nobody talks about it because we are still in this go, 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 fire putter outer mode. And there is, of course, a lot of philosophizing about how it comes that some of the major holidays in religions is right around this time, but not exactly at the winter solstice time. And some of that, of course, can have to do with the, how our calendars, sort of became a little offset over time. But others also say that there's a purpose in not celebrating the rebirth of the light and sort of redirecting people's energies onto the consumerism aspect of the holidays a couple of days later, so that they don't actually really sort of learn about what is possible in those days. For us as energy workers, as I mentioned earlier, the solstice energies are very, very cool energies. And even though this winter solstice feels very disruptive in its nature, meaning, I've talked about clearing waves, I've talked about correcting waves. We've been in correcting phases pretty much up and down all year. And then there's also some phases that are very connecting, that are very soft and so forth. So those of you who are familiar with my energetic barometers know that these gauges that I have there kind of show us the intensity. And if you look at the barometer for this week, then you will see that it's on like past red. It's like really high intensity, super tense, disruptive potential. Okay, and we in this energy update here, we're going to talk about how this is going to play out for us. The forecast is a collection of protocols and tendencies, and not exactly a prediction, but more so, like a trend, coming from working with energetically sensitives here 24/7, 365, who go through some of these collective things a little earlier, just simply due to their sensitivity. And then we're going to talk about how we got here. I'm going to refer to the energy update from last week, or maybe the weeks prior, and then we're going to look into the prediction part. And as many of you know by now, I also like to reflect on very practical aspects of our energetic sensitivity these days, specifically about the crypto market. So about halfway in, I'm going to be talking about crypto news, things that are playing out in one of those ecosystems, or one of these areas of our human collective, in which some of these new energies that we are allowing in, that are contributing to this global awakening phenomenon, and that sort of indicate that there is a big transformation happening where this plays out. And that's interestingly this time around in the crypto market. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and so forth, just to name the big four. This is not just a FUD or a bubble, as some people call it. This is the manifestation of a transformation that is going on in the collective right now, and we're going to be looking at that a little bit. And then, as a special goodie today, I'm going to start our 12-day Getting Through the Holidays daily broadcast here from Transcodes with a special guest. what I'm going to do, and we've done this in the past years, and it's very successful, and people really, really like this, was that we would reflect on daily energies at a certain time of the day. It'd be 7 p.m. Mountain time here in the United States, starting tomorrow, where we're going to just reflect a little bit and talk about how you have been perceiving some of the outer energies, and how you're dealing with this. This is a wonderful opportunity to interconnect with you, and to discuss things together. Okay, so it's less, like this lecture style or teachery style that I have when I do the energy updates, and more the interaction. And as a special goodie, I have guests here that are somehow related to energy work. Maybe not all of them energy healers, but people who are interested in translating energy healing into their practical lives, and that have maybe found ways how they do this in their world. And I'm going to ask them a few questions, and they're going to basically be my panel guests then for this day. And at the end of each of these Getting Through the Holidays broadcasts, we're going to tune in to the energies of 1 month. So we're going to start with January 2017, 18 today, and every day is another month. So that by the end of this daily show, which will be on the 1st of January, we will have a sort of a collection of things that people feel coming in due to their precognitive ability to tune into energies. This doesn't necessarily mean that those are clairvoyant or astrologically coherent channelings. Those are just energies that people are picking up on. And I like doing this because it shows the simplicity. There's a lot of sort of, woo-woo around energy work, around spirituality, and everything is being made special, and only I have these abilities, and it separates, and it makes people feel that these are abilities that only a few chosen ones, have, and this is not the case. Certainly, like myself, I'm not a clairvoyant, but I have very cool energetic abilities. I can see people's energy fields. I can see the structures in there. My personal skills go very much into the technical. That has to do with my background, coming from software and chemistry and breaking things down into patterns, and code. So I can go really, really deep into a person's energy field. And my panel guest here today will be someone who actually made that his profession. So we're going to be talking to an etheric surgeon and energy clearer here in a little bit when I'm done with the energy update. All right, one more comment. Please ask questions at any time, okay? I am dealing with a lot of things here at the same time, so I cannot promise that I can see all your comments. But before I get started here to go into the overview, and then the review, then the forecast, and then after that into the Getting Through the Holidays. Yes, show me where you guys are from. Oh, this is cool. Some of you have already started. Yes, Margot, happy winter solstice to you too. Welcome, Canada. Welcome, Bahrain. Okay, please, yes, share me what country you're from. This is so cool to see this. And if you haven't done so, please push the like button right now, because when you push the like button, it makes it available to others, and they can then see the chat as well. And so, yes, Ireland. So push that like button, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, these are technical things, all right, that are very important to keep these energy updates alive. Summer solstice in South Africa, woohoo! And that is true. And you know, I talk a lot about this because my clients are from all over the world. And even though there's summer solstice in the southern hemisphere right now, due to the dominance of certain collectives, such as like the American collective, in the movies, music, and so many other things. I mean, like this whole sort of red and white Christmas is basically sort of an American marketing idea. All right, the southern hemisphere also experiences these aspects. Yes, Australia, awesome. Okay, guys, wonderful, awesome. All right, so let's go into the overview, into the summary of what is going on here, at least from an empathetic and energy work standpoint. Well, first of all, and this is why I talk so much about winter solstice or solstice energies altogether, it marks or they mark the halfway point, either in the longest night or the shortest night, the longest daylight or the shortest daylight. And it is also when the sun shifts into a different angle towards the planet Earth, and that's why it either gets colder or warmer around these times. But they are not just linked to day and night or dark and light. They're also linked to masculine and feminine energies, and that's something that may be a little far-fetched for some of you who have not really worked with energy work, but the masculine and feminine energies within us, they represent sort of the dualism in our human existence. They don't necessarily represent good or bad, but it goes into this direction. And so we have these two opposing or seemingly opposing energies in us, and at certain times one side of us or one part of us will be sort of more and dominating than the other. The winter solstice is associated with feminine energies needing to be embraced back in. All right, the feminine stands for birth and rebirth, also death in that way. And here a little hint: disruptive energies can be very feminine in nature. So everyone who has the fear of wrath, of the female wrath in him or her, knows what I'm talking about. It's also represented in Kali, in these destructive energies. So whenever there's birth, there's also a death, and the death is kind of like the part that we're dealing with right now. This is what drives us into this deeper journey, into the deeper aspects within ourselves, and naturally it brings us to the very core of our unresolved issues, namely, and we've talked about this a lot in the energy updates, and if you've read any of my articles, you know that this is basically what we do here at Transcodes, helping people to work through these different layers of their ego and of some of the core issues that may not necessarily be simply be addressed with physical or emotional or mental therapies. Some of these lie in the spiritual, and many of them, as we come to find out, actually lie in the energetic, which means in the underlying sort of a programming, source code programming, okay? And you guys are right there right now. You're on your source code. And everything that has not been resolved, every inner conflict, everything that you have been avoiding, that you have been suppressing, that you have been running away from, that you have been blaming others for, that you can't or don't want to take responsibility for, or that you cannot love about yourself, is now being triggered. And this is why, on top of these outer conditions, these outer like just seasonal conditions or weather conditions, as I often call them, why these times are usually challenging. And in the winter solstice time, allowing the feminine to come back in. And I want to make clear that this has nothing to do with men and women. Okay, I'm talking about energies And when I talk about feminine energies, I'm talking about the energies that allow things to grow, that allow things to unfold, that allow things to be nurtured, but not sort of in the loud and assertive type of way, which would be more of a male or masculine energy, but more so in the dark, in the hidden. All right, and that's part of the problem. That when we are asked to allow these energies back in, it means that we can only do this if we're really willing to face this. And so, coming to the overview here of what the situation is right now, I announced last week that we're most likely going to have shocking news, more revelations, more things in regards to, perhaps even really new news, such as maybe aliens or meteoroids or whatever, that are bringing in completely new aspects into our collective, that we're going to encounter stuff like this. And I think we are. You can tell there is a sort of a bit by bit release of those kind of things. So shocking, yes, but actually sort of a little bit swept under the rug. Okay, just like tiny little bits here and here. So some of the things that came forward this past week was actually I forgot, fighter pilots, I think it was, reporting in length about encounters with alien ships. And whether you believe in aliens or not, it really doesn't matter. Personally, I don't pay a lot of attention to this, but because of the significance of this, this whole subject for us here, for us humans here on this planet, simply because we haven't made that contact yet, or we haven't had the chance to actually process that, namely the question, are we the only ones? Is our collective the only collective that exists, or is there way more out there? And the impact that this could have on religions and so forth, all right? Because of that, there is a big significance to it, not so much in regards to the question whether or not aliens exist. Personally, this has never been a question for me. And I've actually seen quite a bit of my, not like, shaking hands, I come in peace type of contact, but, the realms that I investigate, which are mostly multidimensional realms, in those realms, this is a quite frequent occurrence. And so for me, it's not really about proving that aliens are out there. It's actually more probable that there are other species and other entities in other dimensions than not, all right? So if this continues to come forward this week, guys, don't get hung up on proving truth, okay? This is one of the things that I've noticed this week, that many of us who've gone through this sort of precognitive shunning, all right, haven't been made fun of, haven't laughed about in the past, or haven't made shut up and haven't been called crazy, that you guys are going to see a lot of these things that you've always felt truly unfolding now. But you got to refrain from going into this righteous place, into this I told you place, because it's not about that. It's not about you. It's not about what you said, or how early you could predict something. Same with the cryptos. It's not about making the best trade call or something like that. It's not about this. You got to look into the larger context of it, all right? And that is that we are in a big transformation as a whole collective, and that in this transformation, primarily the energy of truth tries to be anchored, tries to be integrated into our practical lives. So it is not so much about being right anymore. It's not about winning. It's not about, those are all masculine principles. if you think about it. It's about just laying it out, giving it the space to exist. And I'm not bringing my personal opinion here of whether or not I think aliens are dangerous or scary. There is just as big as a variety there in different dimensions with different types of entities as there is amongst us humans. All right, so it's kind of a bit limited, you know, to assume that all aliens are positive or negative, or that they come here to help us, or that they come here to destroy us. Okay, we don't know. And the only way to find out is to actually face it, to deal with it, and to grow with it bit by bit. And this counts for every conflict or for every thing that we cannot resolve. We have to grow with it, and we have to accept that whenever we sort of evolve internally, externally, as a collective, as a couple, as a family, that we're going to go through challenges, that we're not going to be able to control all circumstances, and that we're going to have to surrender to our own core, who we truly are. And this is what this spiritual journey is mostly about for all of us, is to find out who we truly are and to find out where we truly belong. Because we still are so deeply wounded and conflicted within that we often cannot answer this. And because we cannot answer it, because we don't really know what our core is, we look on the outside, we externalize our powers, and of course, you know, we become dependent on who is on my team and your team, and all this combativeness, and who's going to win and who can dominate the world and so forth, which are all like parts of the old paradigm. Okay, these things have brought us here, and in this transition that we're in, and the connection here with the winter solstice is only because it is a time where we cannot deny it. Okay, we cannot deny that we have to work with these things, and that we have to allow the death of the old paradigm to happen, so that the new paradigm can actually come in. We have to allow new views, more space, and let go of what's no longer needed, so that we can focus on what makes me stronger, what helps me to nurture me, what helps me to nurture the world, maybe, or what creates a sort of a synergetic effect. Those are things that are coming in through feminine energies needing to be integrated. And the main theme here in the last 2 weeks has been mutual exchange. So if you don't remember any of the words that I just said about feminine energies, blah, blah, winter solstice, blah, blah, remember mutual exchange. This is where this is going. And when it comes to facing our inner unresolved aspects, then remember this, because there is, of course, always a solution that pointed to the direction what's best for you, right? What provides the highest level of self-gain. But again, this is part of the old paradigm. And if you want to go into harmony and into balance with the entire collective evolution, all right, then you need to begin to seek what is most harmonious and not what is most domineering. Mutual exchange. And in relationships, this is playing out very practical right now. A lot of relationships have this, like, we're either going to split up or get married a type of point of no return. No more half-ass, no more kidding, no more kidding around, no more wishy-washy. We now need to commit, okay, or split up. This is the point of trying to resolve things that have been sort of in the hidden, that have been in the suppressed realm for the last year. And if you have been or if you are a frequent listener here, or a YouTube subscriber, then you know that I've been talking about this over and over and over again, all throughout the year, because these unresolved inner things, these suppressed things, are things that we've been avoiding, and a lot of times in a very unconscious way. So it's not necessarily that we can always see this. We have huge blind spots, but if we are not making an effort to allow this deeper journey to happen and to accept that this is a layer by layer process, all right, then it will bite us in the butt. And how does it do that? It does that because our inner resistance will basically sabotage us. It will make it impossible for us to be happy, to have a life without struggle and in abundance. We will not be able to feel abundance. We will not be able to feel joy. And this is what these times are now about. It has nothing to do with the holidays. This has something to do with really remembering the core light in you, the core power. And that has something to do with beauty, with joy, with embracing, with relationships. Those are all our core values, regardless of where we live, in South Africa, or Australia, or London, or Bahrain. These are our core values for all of us. We all want to be happy. We all want to be loved. We all want to feel safe. All right? And if we are not basically doing that work that allows us to become more proactive in dealing with some of our blind spots, then we will experience life as a struggle. And you can feel this right now. So these disruptive energies that we are feeling on all levels, whether this is politically, financially, even on a Earth change, on a Gaia level, lots of disruption right now, or in your relationship, or just with yourself, feeling completely disconnected. Then understand that this is actually a window of opportunity, that this is actually a prompting from your higher self, or to your true self, however you want to name it, to go deeper and to really connect with your core values. All right. So for me, this is a very positive time, and I embrace the challenges that are on the horizon, because I know these are exactly those things that I need to work on, so that I can feel whole, so that I can feel that I am able to mature. If I feel, if I do irresponsible things, if I'm non-integrous, if this is where, if I'm just trying to domineer or to outperform others, then I won't be able to actually self-responsibly deal with whatever outer challenges come along. And it will have a massive impact on my self-worth, self-love, and the ability to adapt to outer changes. So I want to make this very, very clear. We're not talking about some woo-woo work that you need to sign up for yoga classes, or you need to sign up for this. No, it's not about that. It's about really going in and asking yourself, what am I not looking at? What are my patterns here? After however old you are, am I still blaming others, or the government, or aliens for that matter, for my struggle? Or am I in a place where I'm actually willing and able to look at some of the things within me that I cannot love, that I cannot accept, that I cannot see in this mutual exchange, that I want to lock away, cover up, compensate for, or that I need to hide from others. These are the things that I'm talking about. And this is why this feels disruptive. But if you can see that this is also a wonderful opportunity on these times where this barrier this barrier between our false self and our true self, where this gets permeable, that this is a wonderful time for healing, a wonderful opportunity for healing on all levels. All right, then you're well equipped. Then you don't need to worry about whatever, the content is of this transformation. You just got to allow it, and that is the feminine aspect of that. In the last week, how did this play out in review? Last week, people felt quite foggy, actually, spacey. I had a lot of head stuff. I predicted throat stuff as well. This actually came to play. I got tons of emails, people asking, hey, do you feel like this too? Do other people report about this as well? Are they feeling like not fully present, really disconnected? Yes, this is a part of this sort of escalating holiday craziness, all right? Because we go into this fire put her outer mode that I mentioned last time. We're not really thinking about what it is that we need to do. We are going in from one drama to the next. And there was a lot of drama that took place in the last week on all different arenas. And so there was a lot of opportunity for getting fully sucked into your, what we call here, ego coping mechanisms. The ones that basically feed, the avoidance, the sabotage, the all these kind of things, the fear and the anger. And so what, especially in the last couple of days, what came forward for a lot of people was anger, agitation and anger. All right, and this is exactly where this is going, and that's why these times are so volatile, because when people go into the more repressed stuff, when that comes forward, they usually need to release a lot of fear and anger, and some of us also guilt. And I don't need to paint a picture for you what happens if the entire collective, different of course in their ways, releases a lot of fear or releases anger. Obviously, when we release anger, we tend to attack each other. But if you really think about it, then anger, or not think about it, you have to feel that one out. Anger is actually a way to mask our fear. Yes, and so it affects everything. This sort of current energetic weather condition affects everything, not just me and myself, but also all the interactions between people. And this, also, counts for things like, the people in the grocery store, the people outside on the streets, the people on TV, and so forth. So last week, I think it was last week that I said, stay away from news a bit, because when there's this kind of wave coming in, okay, it can easily lead to like panic and sort of really bad vibes coming from news, because it just continues to fuel the fear and the anger. So when it comes to working through anger, we need to look at some of our hidden shadow traits, our inner child stuff. And you guys know this about me. We work a lot on these things here at Transcodes, and really face this. Yes, and I'm reading a post here. Yes, the energies are really strong, and they affected our physical body. If it is highly unusual, confer with the physician. That's correct. So you have to, of course, when you're unsecure about what is going on, you have to go to a medical professional and have this checked out. I'm implying this here because I'm not really talking about ignoring physical stuff either. Basically, what I just said was the complete opposite. I said, pay attention to these things. And when amongst energetically sensitives, we have a tendency to feel things in different ways, but they originate in the same places, in the same energy centers. And so last week I was talking about how or how our expression, which is the fifth chakra, throat chakra, our higher purpose, our the true self part in us, the part in us that is connect with these universal divine energies that permeates through us. They all want to be brought into the physical. They all want to be brought into the root, into the very fundamental part of our existence. They want to be integrated. And so many of you may have had quite severe physical issues in the last week, besides just the throat stuff. A lot of people had back pains, spinal pains, kidney pains, and hip issues. So first and second chakra issues. Yes. Yes, it can disrupt sleeping patterns, and we all know what happens when sleeping patterns are disrupted. Then we feel like agitated, even more agitated, okay? And then we're short-fused. We cannot really take that much. The energetically sensitives have issues with, often have issues with sensory integration, meaning that noises can be very annoying, can be very painful, actually, even too bright of a light, or certain sensory conditions can be too difficult to integrate, all right? And therefore, I would recommend to you that you really take a little bit of extra time, that you take a little bit of sort of bring this calmness back for general maintenance, not necessarily to vision or to connect with your higher purpose, what I recommended last week, but having been worn out a little bit now, I'm actually saying this in regards to getting your system, and not just your nervous system, but also your energetic system, to consolidate a little more, to bring all of it into the center. And there is a breathing technique that I recommend called the I am breathing, which is very efficient. And that is, it's a simple breathing technique, but it has energy work mechanisms underneath it. And for those of you who are a bit more familiar with energy work, you can find a lot of cool rotations in that. My personal energy tip here for dealing with all this disruption that is going on the outside, and the temptation of being pulled into dramas and other people's dramas and gossip, and those are the kind of energies that I talk about when I talk about disruptive energies, rumors, and of course some of these things, such as what is going on right now here in the United States politically, where there's where there are attempts to really forcefully push something through, and it's not being accepted. And of course there is a lot of coping needed to to present this to the public in a way that we don't freak out, because what's actually going on is betrayal. All right, so and that's where most of us, if we don't lash out in anger, then we'll probably end out in feeling betrayed, or feeling the injustice of the outer system basically not supporting us. And that's what triggers these core fears in us, and also a lot of anger, and some of you also a lot of guilt. So that's where you got to be careful. This is sort of the connection here between this last week and coming week. Okay, it's not, you can't really divide this by the dates, but this is going on, and there'll be a little bit of a shift here towards the last week of the year. So I want to give you a little bit of heads up. So while the barometer is all the way on like dark red, high intensity levels, yes, but also very high opportunity levels. Okay, understand that. This is going to calm down just a little bit towards the end of the day, end of the year, and we'll go through every day here at 7 p.m. U.S. Mountain Time and look at these energies. what I want to talk about next, real quick, before we get started with our Getting Through the Holidays broadcast, and before I can say hello to our panel guest here today, is the crypto market. Okay, why am I bringing the crypto market into this spiritual or consciousness development journey? This is because there's a very interesting a movement going on there energetically, and that is sort of the attempt to liberate our collective from sort of oppressive powers, such as I talked about the middleman last week. Okay, taking out the middleman, becoming able to do direct transactions from one person to another. Those are huge things. There's a huge act of liberation, and leads to sovereignty. And in the crypto world, Bitcoin and co. Is sort of the key for how our financial system gets rewritten, gets restructured. And there's, of course, a lot of opportunity in that, but there's also a lot of volatility in that. And obviously, I've been talking about this, I don't know, almost all year. When there's a lot of volatility, then there's also a very high potentiality to lose things. So you have to be aware that when you start entering sort of the volatility of transition, you know that there is a lot of risk, and then there is also a lot of potential for healing in both ways. And last week we've experienced betrayal and all kinds of different manipulation mechanisms in the crypto world. It's still going on. So if you've heard about this, there are attempts, or sort of lobbying against Bitcoin coming from other factions, if you will, that want to prove that their token is the better token, and there are miners, and then there are the stockbrokers, and so there's all these factions, okay, that on the board game right now, and they're all fighting over the pie, okay. And what does that mean to us people who are just seeing, okay, I get it, I see that this is an opportunity to participate here in this shift of wealth, but what does this mean to me when they suddenly turn down exchanges, or when a big company that provides the majority of the software wallets suddenly announces something unusual, perhaps in order to manipulate the price of Bitcoin. What do? Nothing. There's nothing we can do, and the only thing that we can do here is to catch ourselves before we get pulled into the drama, okay? So we have to be aware that this volatility can also trigger our core fears, our core greed, our core ego mechanisms, our specialness. I knew it first. I have the best trade call. I have a special knowledge about a special project. All these things, it's all paradigm, guys, all right? I've said this many times, and I'll say it again. You need to research. This is the birthing state. There's huge opportunities here, wonderful companies, wonderful startups, wonderful technologies in the birthing state. Okay, but there's also the old system fighting for its life. Okay, and that means this is not going to go smooth. There's going to be a lot of fight on a lot of different levels, and it's going to go bit by bit, just like our personal development, or just like our personal, evolution of our awareness or our awakening process. And this is healthy. So for this healthy growth to happen, and for this market as well as ourselves, our own ability to adapt to outer energies and to work through inner energies, which you could also call maturity. For this to happen, we have to have patience. We have to be looking. We have to first learn how to face things and learn how to deal with this bit by bit, and then allow it to mature. Okay, we cannot expect that just because there's a slight shift, and this could also be said about, you know, aliens, just because maybe there's some information that's coming forward about aliens, doesn't mean that suddenly the world goes under, or suddenly the world is different. No, it's all going to bit by bit reveal, and whether it's controlled or not doesn't matter. And we have to allow ourselves and give ourselves the space to adapt, or else we're going to miss out on the big adaptation process, and our life will feel like a struggle. The same applies to the crypto world. We have to give it space to mature. Okay, we can't force it, and we need to make sure that there's a mutual exchange. Okay, so there's going to be ups and downs, and there will be some companies that won't make it, and there will be some companies that will make it big time. Don't get caught up in the drama of it. Okay, that would be like falling for every tantrum your 2-year-old throws. Okay, because this is the stage in which the crypto world is in. Not the people involved, but the developmental stage. It hasn't even fully developed its own identity yet. And it doesn't even know what the future concept is. So this is very much comparable with the developmental stage of a toddler. Okay, so stay calm, allow it to mature. Don't fall for your greed. Don't fall for your fear. Don't fall for your anger. Okay, get yourselves positioned, research, find out the things that you want to find out. You can come to my blog. You can come to these energy updates or other people's YouTube channels and get inspired to research certain things or read articles. And there you will find the promptings that you are looking for, that you need to grow in this market as well as a person. All right, I'm looking at my notes here, and I wanted to point out that as far as the forecast is concerned for next week, this shocking news, okay, that I brought in last week is still on the table. And there's a lot of rumbling on the sociological level. I don't know exactly. I told you this before. I'm not a clairvoyant, and I'm also not doing remote viewing anymore. So it's not about, I cannot really place things in a spatial or temporal way that precisely, but there's a lot of rumbling going on. Earthquakes are still coming in now, accompanied with tsunamis. So that's on the earth changes level. On the sociological level, uproar, social unrest, protests, anything that goes into like people really standing up and venting and letting out their anger. And my tip for you guys is to go into the unified self. That is a consolidation technique that is a bit more advanced than just sort of breathing. And I will produce a video here for you tomorrow with the daily broadcast, how to conduct probably, in my view, one of the most efficient energy work techniques besides breathing and drinking water. All right. So, yes, so if you, yes, I'm looking at your comments here, and I would love to answer some of those here in our second part. I would like to end the energy update with these impulses, and open up the stage, so to speak, for our getting through the holidays. Oh, I should have prepared this. I can't believe I have not prepared this. I'm awake since 36 hours straight, so my mental capacity is a little low. Okay, I want you guys to welcome Jeff Casper, an energy healer, etheric surgeon, and also a energy coach like myself, and I'm going to try, okay, to bring him in here into my screen. Give me a moment. I need to call him for that. And then, Jeff, please turn on your video.
Hey.
Okay, let's see if this works out. First attempt. Okay, yes, okay. Welcome, Jeff Casper, to our first day of getting through the holidays here from Transcodes. Jeff,
Yes.
let us know, what is your expertise? What do you do, and how come I have invited you here to helping people with reflecting about current energies, and perhaps even giving them tips? What do you do, and how do you see, the most recent days here, how the energies are building and how people are dealing with this?
Okay, that's a lot. First, like you said, I'm an energy coach. I'm an energy clearer, and I'm also a trans coach. I work with trans codes, and my specialty is kind of digging through what is in the way of the heart. So when you have a session with me, a lot of times it is geared towards finding those blocks, finding the limitations that are stopping a person or their energy from expanding, and it can be very helpful to have that kind of work done, because then you kind of got a roadmap, because a lot of times what's in the way is the roadmap to how we get to our heart. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I do. And of course, I'm also a coach, so I help to people reframe things and work through processes. So when they have a session and this list comes up and all these things are there, I help them to reframe that so it's not so daunting or feels like you're so limited or you're so stuck. It can be really powerful. As far as like last night's session, or just in general for the last few weeks or the holiday season for the energies?
These winter solstice energies that we're dealing with right now. I explained them here before
Yes,
you came on.
Yeah.
So not necessarily sessions. People don't know what sessions we do unless they participate. So more so what you observe in general, and what people's challenges are right now, and what you would recommend for people how to deal with it.
Well, I think the challenges right now, it's a couple things. One, it's about, we're heading into the winter solstice is going into winter, so it's about letting go. Winter is the time to let go of the old, to go a little bit within, to really feel out what we want to do for the next season or the next round of seasons next year. It's also dealing with holidays, which can be beautiful and challenging at the same time, because you're dealing with communicating with loved ones, family members, which can be awesome or not so awesome. You're dealing with lots of travel a lot of times. There's stress. There's, of course, if you're involved in Christmas, there's lots of stress around money and buying things and so forth. So a lot of times it can be a lot of up and down. But to me, the solstice time frame is a chance to kind of let go. You've gotten through the year. It's time to be thankful for everything that happened, to really see a beauty in what's occurred, and then go within to really be able to kind of relax a bit. That doesn't mean you have to quit your job or anything like that, but you begin to kind of pull back in and you really feel out, what do I want to do for the next year? What do I want to do for the next round of seasons? And it's an opportunity to really kind of double check and release. Of course, now with commercialism and all the kind of stuff and all the travel and with family, that can be challenging. So one of the biggest tips, I think, a lot of times for this time of year, at least for myself, when a lot of family stuff happens or whatever, is to really remind myself, stay centered. There's lots of stress this time of year. Mm-hmm. It's not all bad by any means, but it's,
I talked about this. The centeredness and the consolidation is really all we can do. Really, is to learn how to do this for ourselves. But you mentioned family, for instance, as an example, and there were questions here in the chat. In regards to like betrayal and family. I talked about this here before you came on.
A little bit. I got a part of it, yeah.
So what do you recommend someone, who feels under, like, say, maybe severe attack of their own family? Okay. Mm-hmm. What do? You can't just let them go, sometimes you have to, but this is, like, how do you deal with this? What is your experience? Not necessarily, your professional experience in how to deal with things like this when you are forced to go into these family functions, and you witness all this sort of gossiping and talking about other people. How what do you recommend people how to deal with this so that they don't get pulled into this incongruence and this non-integrous type of stuff?
Yeah, but the challenge is, again, besides being centered, you have to kind of catch yourself. You have to see what's happening. You can't always. There's no way you can control anybody else. And again, with family, because I mean, I'm sure you talked about this. Now I got a chance to listen to part of it. You know, it can get really intense because they know your buttons. There's multiple patterns involved, and you could be on guard just walking in there because you're worried about, oh, this person's going to say that, or my mom's going to do this, or my dad's going to do that, and they're going to judge me, or whatever, or I'm going to judge other people. It could be all kinds of stuff. The challenge, really, all you can do is keep your side of the fence clean, period. Is try to stay calm, try to stay neutral. If you feel yourself getting pulled in, take a moment, go outside.
Okay, let's be a bit more specific, okay?
Sure.
You know, you find out that you enter a room and you find out they've just like gossiped about you, bad-mouthed you or whatever, and it's this awkward energy when you come in and you can feel, you know, what's going on, and it triggers sort of like maybe your deepest core wound, namely that of betrayal or that of abandonment, or being unfairly judged. Okay, how do you deal with this in that moment? What do you do?
If that happens right then and there, you can do a couple things. The first one I would do is I would state that this is not okay for me. You know, that what you just did or what was just said is not okay. You know, I don't appreciate that. You don't have to go anything past that. Just to stay calm, stand your ground, and be neutral. You know, just state your view that this is not okay. What you just said was kind of rude. You can be honest without going into attack.
But what if the others go into attack? I mean, this is also a typical relationship situation, you know, where one will speak up and say, you know, I really don't appreciate that. Or I really don't like that when you do that. And when the other person then immediately becomes defensive or attacks. What can you do as an energetically sensitive, as an empath, you know, to not say lose it in those moments, okay? And to not absorb too much either, as we know. Yeah.
Yeah, the challenge a lot of times is, can you get out of the situation, or can you, you know, mediate it without, you know, feeling like you got ran over by a truck, energetically. And the challenge when you've got people who don't want to stop playing that game of judging or ego stuff or whatever, and you stand your ground and say, I'm kind of done with this. If they start going into it more and more, it's just, you literally have to say, look, this isn't going to get us anywhere. You know, there's no point in going any further with this. And if they want to keep doing that. Now, personally, what I would do if I said those things, I would just say, okay, this is no good for me to be here. I would go find someplace else to go. Now, if that's the entire family against me, I wouldn't go in the first place. That's my personality. Why would I?
So there's a fine line between avoiding and dodging.
Yes.
That's what I hear you say. So there's situations, of course, that we...
Well, you're not dodging, really. You're standing your ground where you're not going to go.
Okay.
Avoiding would be related to fear. Dodging would be typically a coping mechanism. You're just going. There's no point in going into an attack. If a person's got their personality, like if I go to a family member who is constantly berating me, and I told them to stop many times, and there's no point, they keep doing it, then what am I doing talking to them in the first place?
Right.
You know, that's their personality. That's their choice. And I don't like it, but you know, there's no point to go there.
Yeah.
If they do show up and start doing that, you can stand your ground again. If they keep doing it, then if it's your place, you tell them to go. If it's not your place, you just go somewhere else. You know, you keep it calm.
I want to remind everyone here now that this is your time to ask questions directly to Jeff or me or both of us. This is you know, us exchanging you know, energy tips. So please ask questions here in the chat function. And while you're sort of thinking about what you want to ask, Jeff, how does this play out in the energy system of a person? Sort of on that code level, all right, that we work on. How do you, as an energy clearer or etheric surgeon, as many people call it, how do you see this when people are unable to resolve this? How does this, not visually how you see this, but how does this play out for a person, and what do they need to work on in general if they cannot stay in that centered place? in interaction with other people.
You mean, what do they need to work on after they realize they can't get out of it? Okay. Well, there's a lot of patterns and programs you're talking about there, but typically when you feel a pattern or program, let's say it's pleasing or getting angry or whatever, and you realize there's an issue there, a lot of times what happens is it throws off your energy. The visual aspect, you begin to see loops in people's energy. They bounce, they jump, skip, and go all over the place, and they don't really have a good flow of energy. So a lot of times what has to happen is whatever the program is, once you've identified it, like, okay, I please, or my coping mechanism is to withdraw, is to avoid, then you begin to see what it is. Typically, most patterns have one or two things. They either have a payoff that your ego gets, or you're avoiding something. There's an avoidance mechanism.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of times what has to happen is you begin to dig into those things is you have to, and you can't necessarily do this in the moment if you're at,
Right. But we talk, I mean, what happens when people avoid? What happens with their energy field?
Oh, okay. Essentially the question. Usually it gets stuck somewhere. Energetically, they get stuck usually in the lower chakras, or they get too mental and start to judge themselves, or judge the situation, or judge other people. So what begins to happen typically is either their flow of their energy starts to get a little bit clogged, either through the lower chakras, or they begin to have patterns where energy jumps from the second or third chakra to the fifth or the sixth, or they begin to have physical sensations like head pressures, tight throat, stomach extended or like bloated or really tight. You can even have digestive issues, sometimes even slight chest pain. Those are all signs that things aren't flowing properly.
And if this happens, if they do this, like if they suck up these things over extended periods of times, maybe years or all their lives, how can this, not to scare anyone, but since we have you here, how can this play out in a person's energy field on the long run? I mean, you see all these things every day, and help people with guidance as to how to overcome these things. But how does that, how can a certain physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual and energetic things, how can they indicate that, where does this play out?
Well, it can play out in a multitude of areas, depending upon what the issue is. But, let's say you have something with performance-based issues, which is typically second chakra. It can also go into third and upper chakras, but a lot of times it gets tied to the second. You can have all kinds of bowel issues. You can have digestion issues. You can have issues with the ovaries, issues with the testicles, everything. There's all kinds of stuff that can happen depending upon what you're holding on to. If you're holding on to disdain and anger and all this kind of stuff, it can really begin to affect your body. Holding on to anger for a long time and eating it can also show up as depression. You can also become lethargic, not wanting to really do anything. That's something
a lot of people are dealing with right now.
Yeah, big thing issue. It's a big time issue.
Anxiety,
right
is it anxiety and depression,
Yeah, it's the time of year for it. It's the stress. And a lot of times people who are depressed, they eat things. They eat their emotions over and over again, and they don't let it out. And then all of a sudden they get an overload. And a lot of times you'll feel this early on, and I know this one very well personally. You feel it almost like you're tight all the time, like your third chakra and your lower chakras and all this stuff. You just feel tense. You feel like you're constantly on guard. And then eventually you get into just kind of lethargic, apathetic states where you just don't care anymore. You've given up, and what really needs to happen is you need to let that stuff out. Maybe not during the Christmas party.
Well, that's exactly the question, right? I mean, if you don't want to suck it up, and you can't face it, okay, let's say because, for whatever reason, okay, the situation does not allow you to actually resolve it.
Right.
What do? What can you do? So to avoid, severe sort of, let's say, damage, on your energy system.
Right. Well, I mean, we've already talked about what you can do in the situation, but energetically what you can do, are you asking which way? More of the physical or more of the energetic?
Either way.
Either way.
Practical.
Energetically, besides centering, you can also, centering your energy, grounding works exceptionally well for those situations. Taking a break before it gets too intense. If you're dealing with a situation that's not damaging to the point where you need to leave permanently, taking a break helps. so you can
Okay.
recenter yourself, so you don't get into this repetitive attack or absorption cycle. That can really help out. You take a break, breathe, you go out, do what you need to do to recenter yourself. You feel out what's going on with yourself. You acknowledge, I'm angry,
Right.
I'm had it with this stuff, whatever it is. And then you breathe it back in. If you can breathe it into the heart, I know you talk a lot about, and the transcode site talks about I am breathing. That's very effective because it brings it into the heart. It's a form of surrendering, because you're not going to have an answer to it necessarily right away. If you've had a long-standing pattern for 25 years with Uncle Bob or your mother or whoever, it's not likely going to resolve. What's really going to happen is you're going to have to realize there's a game that's being played there for a really long time, and you're going to put the ball down. You say, I'm not playing this game anymore. And that sometimes means you don't talk to Uncle Bob for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about, I was trying to feel myself into this situation, and I've been in this situation myself many times.
Yeah.
I personally find it very helpful, like you said, to take a time out, to say, wait a minute, before I react, before I do anything that I may regret later, that violates my own values, maybe. Let me just sort of take a time out and a little more space so that I can calm down a little bit and then respond instead of react. Okay, this is something in energy coaching we've had with every person almost this week, is the responsibility versus reactivity. Okay, the fire portal outer is our reactivity, the reacting to the drama. But the responsible, the mature part in us is the one that can, regardless of whether or not it's true or who to blame, it doesn't matter. Whatever triggered it, whatever caused it, it doesn't really matter. But that we are in this place of being able to respond, where we can come from the heart and where we don't just sort of react. What does this look like, Jeff? When somebody is caught in their reactivity energetically, what does that look like?
Well, there's a lot of options that happen there. Like if a person goes into victim or hiding, typically their energy pulls back in and it collapses. If they go into anger, it usually turns, well, I see it as red. Many times people say it different ways. It gets really aggressive and starts to get very attached or very attacking, projecting outwards to the person. What happens typically when you've got some type of projecting pattern, especially aggressive ones like severe anger, where you're really in an attack mode, you're literally feeling out who's going to react and you're going to go attack them. Or if you know the person that you're usually mad at, you're going to go at them. You're waiting for that response. The attacker wants that response. He either wants to see somebody either attack back or see a person collapse, them to go weak. So it energetically, you'll start to see them lashing out. Okay. In their systems, a lot of times what happens, they get stuck. They don't have a good flow. You'll see them skip a lot of their fourth chakra a lot of times, sometimes even their fifth, because they're just going reactivity. Or what happens when they go into those states energetically, what comes out, and if you go colors, a lot of times you see black and reds, it's aggressive. Okay. Other times you'll see some other colors, lime greens, certain types of yellows. But what really happens is that their system either collapses or goes really rigid. Okay. Really rigid.
And what happens when a person's energy field goes rigid? What happens to when a person's energy field goes rigid? What happens to their etheric immune system, so to speak?
Shuts down completely. You're basically saying, I'm going to go full bore into this, and basically you're shutting down all potentials for staying calm. Relaxing, allowing that more of the healthier systems, which is based more on, oxytocin and the forebrain as opposed to the mind brain or the midbrain and the hindbrain. You're going more into the animalistic reptilian attack centers, and that creates a stress system that's based on reactivity. So
basically, what you were saying, in a nutshell, is that people have to release energies, but that they also have to look into the context, into the constellation of things. And that it's venting energies for the sake of clearing your own energies is very important. But sometimes it would, and I'm just paraphrasing here, it would just put fuel into the fire. So you got to find out what the most mature and responsible, and also in context with the overall situation, what
Yes.
the most responsible type of thing is.
Yeah.
We all have abilities to clear things out through energy work techniques, and you mentioned a few here. You mentioned grounding, you mentioned centering. I talked about consolidating energy.
Yes.
So those are all like we just sort of throw these words out, but these are like really big things that can change a person's life. Can you give us here real quick before you go get an example or something like a process for grounding energies? I mean, next week we're going to be dealing with massive first chakra, fifth chakra, and fourth chakra. So fourth and fifth chakra into the first issue. So grounding will be one of the probably the best quick fixes for us energetically. Can you give us a little bit of a tip here how to do grounding?
Yes, if you've got the time and it's not like super freezing cold outside, finding a good tree that's in a quiet place, you can sit with your back to the tree. I'll give you two quick ones. So sitting against the back of the tree, you just kind of settle into it and you begin to focus on your breathing through your chest, and just relax a bit and then really feel that tree. And then depending upon your sensitivity, you can just visualize or you can actually feel as you breathe in, as you breathe in, pulling all the energy up from the ground, from the roots of the tree, all the way up into your fourth chakra, which is dead center chest. And then as you breathe out, breathing your energy down all the way as far down as you can into the ground and creating kind of a loop there. As you keep doing that, what happens is not only connecting with the tree, but you're also connecting with the earth. And that's a very effective and strong method of releasing energies and kind of getting recentered really quickly. So again, it's just breathing everything up into the chest and pulling up from as deep as you can up into your heart. And as you breathe out, shooting the energy back down to as deep as you can and creating a circuit. And that really, two things it does. One, it connects you to the ground. Two, it also helps you clear out emotions and that reactivity because it helps to loosen up the lower chakras. That one you can take 5 or 10 minutes with. If you're a little bit practiced in clearing, you can just do this in the moment. I've done this many times where, and in situations like we're talking about, because the holidays is really stressful. It can be very beautiful too, but it can be really stressful. Is you can just be wherever you're at, know that you are connected to the ground. And you can literally do the same breathing process, but visualize like roots or your feet going deep as you can into the ground. Okay. Deep as you can as you breathe out. And as you breathe back in, pulling that all the way up to your fourth chakra and creating that cycle. You can literally do this while you're talking to people. You may get a bit dippy, but it does work. I've done this myself.
By the way, here's a question. George is asking, skipping fourth and fifth chakra, is that mentalizing?
Typically.
It's interesting that you see it that way, George. It's actually really cool that you this question, because most people. Sorry, Jeff. I just want to add here to the energetic dynamics for this week. Most people, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago, I think. When things get a little tougher in regards to the larger perspective and sort of connecting with those higher vibratory concepts. They immediately sort of go into opening up, everything up here, they're striving for enlightenment, ascension, and so forth. And also use this as a coping mechanism for dealing with their reality by creating some kind of alternate reality with some kind of fantasizing. All right, so there is there's a desire that comes in and sort of the physical reality doesn't match up. And then there is sort of our higher vibratory abilities that can connect us with some of these other realms. And yes, we're bypassing this part here. Mm-hmm. Right. And this part is, we talked about this last week, is our connection with our center. So if the connection with the center is not there, we're basically off on a blind spot. Mm-hmm. It's not just mentalizing. It can also be fantasizing, or it can also be suppressing. But
it can also be judgment based, where all of a sudden some little snippet of your critical inner voice or judgment comes in, and then bam, you're locked in that judgment. So then all your lower chakras begin to react to that judgment, or an emotion comes in and the judgment gets triggered. Now you're stuck in that, and you're skipping, like Jona said, you're skipping these center spots where you can be really connected. You see this a lot with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or sensitive. It's crazy how it shuts down. Because now all of a sudden when a person's in this, like when we work with people or you're doing a clearing session, you'll literally see them skip most of their energy. Yeah. And it literally, you can see what happens with that is when you have a judgment hit, it's usually around the head, or sometimes off to the left if it's critical in their voice. It literally just shuts everything down. You can see the perception of the person completely become skewed or cramped or more so blocked. Mm-hmm. So by working through the judgments and the attachments to those, like we talked about earlier with ego payoffs and avoidance, then the judgment gets released, some of those patterns release, and you have a better chance to connect.
Yeah, and Jeff, you bring in the judgment in because the judgment is usually linked here with the fifth chakra. So if we skip the fourth chakra, we are losing connection within, period. Okay, and that makes it difficult for us to feel our feelings, as stupid as that sounds, but to really be able to pinpoint how we feel. Yeah, you guys wouldn't believe how hard that can be sometimes when you are in this sort of false self or in this fire portal outer mode. You cannot feel your feelings anymore. And you've heard me say this many times, you can only hear what you can feel. So bypassing the heart connection is always sort of at the core of long-term issues for people.
Yeah, I agree.
When you did the grounding exercise or the grounding technique, actually I could feel this going on. The grounding itself, it actually felt for me as energetically sensitive, I could feel it in the people listening, which I thought was really cool.
Mm-hmm. It can really help, because if you have nothing else, I mean, getting away for just a minute, even a minute, and go and leaning against a tree, anything, just to give yourself a second, just to release, just to let go before you go into that reaction. Because once you go into the reaction, all those things we just talked about with the energetic loops and stuff begin to occur. And Jona nailed it. Once you're in those spots, you cannot, well, you do feel your feelings, but you feel them completely, you feel them much less, and usually you misunderstand them completely, or you justify them and you go full bore into them. That son of a whatever, I'm going to go yell at him again. Then you're stuck. So.
Yes, we've talked a lot about the subjectivity of perception and how distorted it can be once our ego is involved. And every time we are in reactivity, guys, that's when our ego is involved. And when our ego is involved, then you have to assume that your perception of whatever the situation is right now may not be neutral, may not be exactly the way it appears. And for many of you who may be in a relationship challenge right now, remember, if you both go into reactivity, that means both of you go into your blind spots, both of you go into these disconnected areas of yourself. How high do you think is the chance that you're going to resolve the issue at hand? 0.
Yeah.
You're going to play out a pattern that you have been playing out, and this will merely continue. So if you want change in your life, in your relationship, in your job, or whatever, then you need to know what the pattern is, and you need to stop yourself. You don't need to know the fix. You don't need to know how to resolve it at that moment. You just need to refrain from the old. That's what Jeff said in the beginning. You have to be willing to let go of the old. And that's the, in this first step here, something that I would recommend is to focus on just simply stopping your reactivity. You don't yet have to resolve big karmic family issues, okay? This is not the goal. You cannot control the outcome anyway. When there's multiple people involved, then everybody has their own karma, everybody has their own intention, and also their own integrity levels. You cannot control that for others. You can't make them heal. That's not how this works. But what Jeff said, what you can do is keep your side of the fence clean or cleaner and not add to the fire. All right. And as soon as you stop adding to the fire, buying into the drama, grounding yourself, opting out, without avoiding, without, like running off and I've had it. No, but by, like, hey, I need a little bit of space. I'm going to go outside and take a walk or something, or ground yourself. And then your whole entire interaction will become more mature. And that means that the overall energy level, the frequency level of that interaction begins to vibrate higher, vibrates in a higher vibratory state, which then will lead to you being able to come up with higher vibratory solutions. But first you have to create the right conditions for that. And it always starts with yourself. You cannot make others responsible for not doing it, okay? You're going to have to start with yourself and then hope that, based on the love between you or some other common goal that you have, or your integrity, that the other person will want to have that resolved as well. And then work on it together. Mutual exchange. All right, guys. Before we let Jeff off the hook here, any more questions?
Just fine.
Any more questions in regards to energy clearing, etheric surgery, absorbing, or projecting energies? Anything that comes to your mind that you would like to ask Jeff here? Okay, you can find Jeff. He works for as an energy coach for transcodes as well, but also for his own website, which is called www.selfunification.com. And Jeff, if people want to do energy clearings, how can they do this, or what do they need to expect when they book a session with you? Just real brief. What is that like?
Well, right now I've got a couple specials, so I'll stick with those. But you go to my site, there's a shop, and you go to the energy sessions or energy coaching sessions. The main one I typically do is a remote session where the person, you'll get instructions from me once we set up a time. I get some basic information from you, and you go into a relaxed state, typically sitting down or lying down. And then once the session starts, I connect with the person's energy and begin to work through it. What I mean by that is I check everything. I check the main chakras. I check the system itself. I check sometimes physical stuff shows up. What I'm really searching for is, where is your energy not flowing properly? Where is your energy not allowing you to expand? And usually what shows up, and this is probably because of what Jona and I work on, is that we work on psychological patterns, spiritual patterns, emotional patterns, mental patterns, and I begin to feel those out. Part of the process is releasing and expanding and opening things up. Other part of the process is helping a person align to those centers. So typically what happens in a clearing session is you'll feel, if you don't fall asleep, usually you feel some expansive things come through you. You might feel some tension here and there for a bit. You might have very strong dreams. What's really happening is, as I go about that, I help to speed up your energy and align it more to your heart center. And then with the report that you get afterwards, and typically there's a coaching session as well, depending upon what you sign up with, we go ahead and talk about that. We talk about what happened, how did you feel, any crazy experiences that you had, and then questions you have about the report and how to help maybe reframe those things. But
all this happens remotely, right? It sounded like you have a practice and people lay down. This is not how this works, right? I mean, this is remotely, meaning that people from all over the world can sign up for this?
I apologize, yes. Yeah, it's remotely. I do have a newer one that's just, I've just put it on my site, but I haven't announced it heavily yet, where if a person's done a session with me and kind of understands energy work, we can do one live via Skype where I actually help clear your system and we talk through what comes up, what you're feeling and everything. But the majority of the sessions that I work on are remote, where the person is lying down, relaxed. I'm not there. I'm present only energetically.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's amazing what comes up in an hour. It really is, and as long as they know that what my work is not about, where all your strengths are at and, what your power animal is and all that, which is all fine, but it's more about what is in the way of you going further, what is in the way of you expanding and getting more into your heart, more into your spiritual journey.
And you also write a pretty comprehensive report, I think, with tips or kind of like a roadmap for the person where they need to work on or what they can do physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or energetically to further support this.
Yes. Yeah. It's usually 3 or 4 pages.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, Jeff Casper from selfunification.com, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For joining in. I hope we all had a visual of you. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see in the recording. This was our first day of getting through the holidays, guys. Every day at 7 p.m. U.S. Mountain Time, meaning tomorrow, the 22nd of December, 7 p.m. here live again. And tomorrow we'll start with channeling the energies for the coming year. I know I said that we were going to do January. We have not enough people watching live here. We need more audience to be able to do this. So please tell your friends, share, push the like button, all right? And make sure that we have enough people there so that we can actually begin to mutually work our energies together. One last question here. Does neurofeedback work? Yeah, I mean, depending on what you want to use it for. I've had the ability to test neurofeedback machines in the mid 80s, and they're pretty cool. It goes into the direction of kinesiology, muscle testing, so you can get good feedback from them. I don't really think that you need them, but there are some cool telephone apps nowadays that come with the sensor that are based on neurofeedback, very simple neurofeedback. For instance, heart rate that work really well for, say, helping a person to relax, helping a person to meditate. So yeah, it depends on what you need it for. There's many other ways to go into connection with your body. All right, neurofeedback is a physical connection, but it's one that has a psychological, therefore emotional impact on you. So I've talked about this in the past. If we want to have a positive learning, then we also need positive feedback. Okay. All right, that was our last question. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Jeff Casper. And looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, 7 p.m., same time. I mean, same place. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.